All right, so this build grew out of a problem you're likely familiar with, and that's that when you're doing an interior design project, there are a ton of vendors and transactions and receipts, and somebody has to log every one of those. So, whether you shop at Amazon, Wayfair, or whatever, every order you place has a receipt associated with it, and many of these are going to come through email. And so there's an opportunity here to automate this. But each one has to land in the correct project with the right amount and all the other information being correct. And when things get missed, budgets drift, your tracking within a project drifts, and over a long enough period of time, you can end up with a mess that takes a lot of cleanup and can result in errors that make you look bad and can impact your brand and also your efficiency. So what we built for this for ourselves is an AI agent that takes email receipts and it turns them into project transactions inside of our in-house software, which you can see here every morning at about 6 a.m. so that every day when we start our day, we have a clean slate with fresh transactions from our recent orders, and we can check them, do any cleanup necessary, but we can skip all of the manual entry on the front end that can really slow things down and kind of interrupt flow. So this agent kicks off every day at 6 a.m. It goes through our Gmail inbox and it reads and extracts all of the order data from our emails, and then it matches it to a project and it creates a transaction here in Ledger for us. So for example, if we have this cotton blanket email here, this corresponds to this transaction right here. And so we have everything we need to audit kind of our orders and end up with clean reports and clean budgets at the end. So a few things have to be in place in order for this to work. Number one, you need some place where you can rent AI agents from. And we use Claude Desktop. We use that app in order to interface with Anthropic. They're the company that makes Claude, and we rent all of our agents from them. Because basically, whether you're working with OpenAI or Claude, we prefer Claude. When you use these companies, you rent agents that basically come as blank slates, and they have to be trained essentially on whatever task you want. So you need the app, you need the agent, and then you need, in this case, Claude calls them skills. Generally speaking, like if you want to zoom out a little bit and think about all AI providers, you need instructions for these agents. So we built a skill. That's what Claude calls these sets of instructions specifically for the process I described. But that's not enough. You also need to arm the agents with the tools that it needs in order to do what you're asking it to do. And so in Claude, we have things called connectors, which are essentially integrations. We need one for Gmail in this case, and we need one for our in-house project management software, Ledger. So if we go into Claude, I would just configure those in Claude Desktop here under connectors. So we have the Gmail one, and then we built a custom one for our app so that we can talk to it with AI because it makes things so much easier and so much faster. I'm gonna kind of breeze through how this works because it's a little more in the technical direction, but basically the agent looks through Gmail and it looks for vendors that it knows we already work with. And then we've also given it keywords to look for that signal, hey, this is an order. And it takes all the results and it combines them and then it cleans it up. So it drops things that it decides aren't orders, it drops duplicates, stuff like that. So it makes a couple of searches and then it does some combining and filtering. And then as it does that, it extracts from the things that it thinks are orders, the vendor, the total and subtotal, shipping address, payment method, line items when they're available, and any links to invoices, so that all that stuff is tracked inside our software, and also so that it can match things correctly. It can say, hey, is this already a transaction in the system? Which project does this go to? And it'll do that in an intelligent way. It can infer, even if the transaction is described differently in our system already, because maybe we want to do some manual entry. Because we're using AI, it can actually think about the meaning of things even when they don't match exactly. In terms of how it does some of this stuff in detail, first, what it does to make sure that there are no duplicates that are being created in our software, because that can mess things up too. It can create messes inside of each project. It looks inside of our software and it says, hey, did we already create a transaction from this email ID? And if it did, it just skips it. But if it didn't, we have another layer of checks. You often want these layers of checks when you're working with AI. And the second one says, hey, is there a matching vendor, amount, and date inside of the project management software? And if those three things match, then it skips it and it's probably a duplicate. Otherwise, it continues to create the transaction. We also have to figure out what's the right project. And so what we do is when we create projects is we add notes to each one with the address, the last four digits of the card that's going to be used for purchases, the client name, and then sometimes we'll add some vendor data in there. And with it, the AI can say, hey, based on the content of this email receipt, it is very likely that I have all the info I need to create a transaction and it doesn't have to be reviewed. Or it's going to be like, hey, I'm not completely confident. I'm going to flag this for human review. And it's biased to kind of flag things for human review because we don't want errors. We want to kind of err on the side of caution and keep our eyes on everything that it's not totally confident about. When a transaction does already exist, then it can say, hey, is there complete info in this transaction? And if not, then it can add it. So all this happens in the background every morning so that we don't have to think about this anymore. And when we use AI to do things in our app and talk to our app, our project management app, it has all the information it needs as well so that we don't have to do nearly as much thinking, nearly as much data entry. We just automate the pipeline. So what we'll probably do next, because right now this runs every morning, what we're going to do next is set up a thing that makes it so that the inbox is monitored continuously so that when a new email arrives, there's going to be an agent there that decides, does this look like a transaction or not? And if it does, then it's going to push it through the pipeline I just described. So that's what this does. And in the end, what you get, as you can see here, is when an email comes in, we get a transaction in our software. And we weren't a part of any of that, which is obviously great. So in terms of how to actually build this, if you're curious, we did it in Claude Desktop and we, again, rented one of these agents from Anthropic and we gave it instructions and essentially described the vision of this system and this skill. Like the core thing we had to make here, we had to do two things. We had to update our app a little bit and then we had to create this skill. So we gave it instructions and I just talked this in. And then what I often do, like you'll see that it says converse here. I made a skill that just says, I just want to talk about this. Because often what you'll see when you work with AI is that it'll jump into planning right away or jump into implementation right away. And that's often not what you want. What's usually a better idea is if you can talk to it and make sure that you're on the same page about what the goal is and then brainstorm, kind of riff on the idea and iterate on it, ask it questions, ask it to do research until it feels really solid, like there's really good alignment between you and the AI. And so that's what we did at first. We talked back and forth. It said, hey, this is what I'm thinking you want, and this is what I would propose. And I guess to get into detail, it proposed a solution that involved building some custom software, stuff that I didn't want. So I was like, hey, I think this can be simpler. This should just be a skill, just a Claude skill, so that when we run agents, we can just install that skill into the agent and have it do what we want inside of Claude. Because Claude is the AI brain of our business. We don't want to build any custom stuff we don't have to. So I pushed back and I was like, let's do it a little bit differently. And it was like, okay, great. That's a cleaner architecture. Let's see what it would look like when we make it a skill. So as you can see, we actually talked back and forth with this AI agent for a while before we gave it the plan command. I gave it a little bit of feedback on the plan, and then it implemented the plan. You can see it kind of narrating the process of building this skill for us. And here it's updating our custom connector for Ledger, our software, so that it has everything it needs to do this transaction work with this agent to automatically create transactions from emails. I asked it a couple of questions to make sure that it created the thing that I do want. And then we ran a test, because whenever you build something, you want to test it right away. Because the thing is, when you're building with AI, it almost never works exactly the way you want it the first time. So you got to so you brainstorm, you make a good plan, you execute the plan, and then you test it. And then you assume you're going to have to go through a couple of cycles of fixes and retests. So the first time that we tested this thing, it didn't find any orders because it was using keywords that weren't very good to find orders. And so we expanded them significantly until it could find orders. So here we're testing to make sure that it can find duplicates, which it proved it could. And this is a test to make sure it could find new transactions and create them in our software, which is this one right here. That's this test case. So that was kind of step one, creating the skill that our agents are going to use when they get spun up at 6 a.m. But I have something set up in Cowork right here. I wanted to show you different parts of Claude Desktop. I often work in this code part because it lets you build more tools, and it gives you more granular control over the agents that you're using. But Cowork is also a really good interface. It's probably a little bit more user-friendly and good to start with, but I basically have a chat pulled up in Cowork that is gonna let you see how to create one of these remote agents I was talking about that's gonna run automatically every morning at 6 a.m. And you can see that the prompt is super simple. I just asked it to create a remote agent to run the skill that we just created every morning at 6 a.m. So it's gonna read the skill. Now it has the context it needs, and it's gonna create the skill. I'm gonna try again because it timed out because I've been waiting here. Right now it is in the background creating this agent that's gonna live in the cloud. Really, it's creating instructions for Anthropic to create a new agent every day at 6 a.m. and then plug our skill into its brain before it runs. That's like really what's happening. But I'll click the schedule button to accept the changes, and that's it. So if we were to go to scheduled tasks, we'll see that I have my weekly Monday morning briefing, and now our get transactions from email remote agent with the instructions that it needs, a step-by-step workflow for how to parse these emails along with all the tools it needs to do it. So that's it. We went from basically creating hundreds of transactions in our software manually to doing it automatically, all because we created a connection to our project management software, our Gmail account. We created this skill, and then we set up this remote agent to run that we're running from Claude every morning at 6 a.m. It's going to save us dozens of hours over the next few projects that we do. So that's it. If you like this kind of content, you can subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot of these builds in public, live, for the interior design business that I support, 1584 Design. And if you want to be an AI-first interior design business and add a lot of leverage to your design firm so that you can grow without hiring a huge team, or just be able to step away a little bit more and enjoy the lifestyle that you've earned by building an incredible design business, you can get a free AI strategy call in the description below.